Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 66 of the Run in the Paint podcast. I'm Miles. I'm here with Joey and Nick. Guys, how are you doing today?
Feeling good, feeling good.
Happy to be back. What's up, guys? Joey, thank you for offsetting our Ohio State slash Cavs theme with some Chelsea gear in the back.
I finally got something to hang in the background. Seeing Chelsea this past weekend down in Columbus, man, that was a fun time. But we
We're
got some
officially an
basketball.
international pod.
I am. I am.
At least you, yeah, I guess Joey
I will always
represent our
support
international.
London, Chelsea. London is blue.
Exactly. And well, we have a lot of international things to go over. That's going to be one of our two main things. We're going to go over the Olympics quarterfinals bracket, as that was determined. We have all the games that will occur. Well, actually, today, as this is being released, some of the games are already going to be over by the time this is released. But then we are going to start the first of many top 10 lists for each positions. This video, we are going to give our top 10 point guard. So that is going to be fun. Could be very controversial. We will see. But first, let's start off with the Olympic preview with four games going on. First up, we'll start with the game that's at 5 in the morning Eastern time, which means that it'll already be over when this is released. And that is Germany versus Greece. And this is going to be there are a lot of headline matchups in this one, but Germany versus Greece is definitely an intriguing one to start out with. Germany has been so dominant so far, but of course, Greece has Giannis, who's been arguably the best player in the Olympics. So, Nick, we'll start with you. What are you looking at in this matchup?
I probably won't be watching it since it's at 5 a.m. But
right, very true, very true.
Dennis Schroeder is who is like the driving force for that German team. So definitely gonna be watching to see what he can do, if he can penetrate Greece's defense and make Giannis and their front court rather a little bit uncomfortable by just like attacking the paint and getting into the paint and making things happen for them. I think he's going to be a huge factor not only in this game but in the rest of the tournament for Germany. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but in that Germany-Canada potential matchup, I think a lot of what is going to transpire in that game is going to come down to like Dennis Schroeder's efficiency.
Oh yeah, for sure. Dennis Schroeder is 100% the driving force. He was the best. He was the MVP in the World Cup last year, and he's leading the team in Germany, who, like you said, Miles, is just absolutely dominating. Another player I was gonna say, Giannis is the one I would be watching though. Like, man is not arguably the best player. I think he is performing. He is carrying Greece on his back, like he has with the Bucks all these many years. So I don't know. He's the one. Like, I think Germany's gonna dominate because they're clearly the better team. But Giannis was an MVP in the NBA. He could do crazy things if he puts his mind to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if Greece is even in the position to where they could win this game, it's going to be because of Giannis. Because we talked about in the last podcast, they really don't have much else other than Kostas Papanikolaou scoring and shooting for them. But Germany, you're right. I mean, Dennis Schroeder has been, a great facilitator for them. Franz Wagner has been their leading scorer. So, they'll probably get this victory. But Giannis will try to do his best to try to get that upset victory. Actually, before we go to the game after that, let's talk about Canada. We'll talk about the team that they could play. France versus Canada, which is at noon. This is a game that I will be watching because, I mean, this, I think, is the headline matchup of the day because of all the star power on both sides. Joey, what do you think about this matchup?
Oh my gosh, if it's not like Canada versus USA or France versus USA, this has got to be the number one matchup, I think. Yeah, Rudy Gobert and Wemby and that loaded France team taking on a 10 NBA rostered Canada team. Like, they are loaded. Like, this is what you get like in like an NBA game almost. This is what you get like an NBA playoff game. with some of these players. Like these are all stars that we're gonna see. I can't wait for this one. This one is the one to watch. I'm very intrigued on how Shea Gilgeous is gonna do and if he is gonna be aggressive. If he's aggressive, he can do anything. But with the two guys in the middle, who knows how aggressive you can be.
Yeah, for France, I don't know. It's everything I've been hearing is about their guard play and not being enough. They have 4 legitimate rotation NBA guys in Victor, Rudy, Koulibaly, and Batum. I think those guys need to be on the court altogether as much as possible. I think you just go big. Like the last kind of NBA guy they have is Evan Fournier, who hasn't been playing very well. But if you can't like go with the guards, like if you can't make that happen, and France hasn't been able to like have success in this tournament because of their lack of guard play, then I think you roll it out big. Go like the 2 bigs together, Rudy and Wemby, and then play your best players. You got 2 more forwards and Koulibaly and Batum. Those are both like 3-4 guys. Just play them all together and see what happens. Like run Wemby as the point, dude. Like that might be. I'm serious. Like it might be your best option because you just don't have like the personnel to not. You're not matching up with SGA, and
not if Wemby guards him.
And Dylan Brooks is shooting 60% from 3.
Yeah, he's been on fire.
Jeez.
It's Andrew Nemhard, right, coming off their bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been electric, just getting to the paint, shooting a very high percentage from 2. Jamal Murray is also coming off their bench, and although he's had a pretty stinker of a tournament, he's still an NBA champion and borderline like star NBA player, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think you roll out that big lineup. Go with those 4: Batum, Koulibaly, Wemby, and Gobert. Go them across. Just play with size and try and dominate the possession game and maybe slow it down a little bit. Play to your own strengths.
Yeah, and whoever gets hot shooting could definitely get the momentum in this game because I mean guys like Evan Fournier, Nick Batum, even Wemby's been lights out from 3 in this tournament. I mean, if any of those guys get going, France will definitely have a good opportunity. Obviously, Canada has so many different pieces. I would probably call Canada the favorite in this matchup. They're probably favored. But the one thing that does scare me in this matchup for Canada is the fact that their leading rebounder right now is Dwight Powell at under 5 rebounds per game. And they're going against, obviously, Wemby and Rudy Gobert, who are averaging a combined 17 rebounds per game. So the rebounding is something that's a little scary to me. And that's probably how France is going to stay in this game because obviously they're just so much bigger. And if they decide to go with that big lineup that you're talking about, Nick, Canada is going to have to get rebounding from other areas. And statistically, it's been pretty spread out. But if they have a trouble on the boards and Wemby and Gobert are just killing it on the glass, it's going to be a struggle.
I would look for RJ Barrett and Dylan Brooks to kind of step up in this one and try and really like focus and concentrate on helping their big men like Dwight and Kelly Olynyk in the paint, getting rebounds and all that. Because those guys, Dylan Brooks and RJ Barrett, they not only have size, they know how to use it. Like they're physical players. And I would imagine that they're going to be on the glass relentlessly. If France, like I would suggest, like goes big, they're definitely going to need to be on the glass relentlessly. For Canada, though, yeah, like you said, the possession and the 3-point thing, it's kind of similar to some storylines I was hearing about the Brazil-USA game. Like USA is obviously much more talented. Brazil's kind of like the Cinderella in this tournament. I heard an exact quote from Brian Windhorst on Who Collected. This is exactly what he said. Because they beat Latvia to get into the group stage of the Olympic round. And they only have one group win. And they might have 2. I'll have to double check that. But If Brazil can dominate the glass and just spray it out to the 3-point line and get hot from back there, then they win the possession battle. They win the 3-point battle. Like, that's the recipe for creating an upset. Same thing in March Madness. Like, we keep comparing this tournament to March Madness because it is very similar. It's one and done. Like, if you go up against a team that is just hot from 3-point range on a given night, and they're also creating extra possessions, like, that is the recipe for an upset. That's how you make things happen. And it goes for France and it goes for Brazil, both in this quarterfinal round.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely way more intense than we're going to be used to seeing, because it's usually not one and done. It's always the best of 7 series. But yeah, it's the strengths. Both teams have to play directly into their strengths, and whoever can do that the best will obviously win. That's just what it comes down to. The big men and the height advantage and the rebounding. If France can just dominate with that, Canada is just going to be trying to slow it down. But if Canada just dominates the guard play and like the 3-point line and possession, like, France can't match up with that right now. Like, it's just whoever does their strength the best does it. But I like the 2 players you mentioned earlier about Canada, Dylan Brooks and RJ Barrett. When you're undersized like that, you have to muck up that paint. Hopefully a loose ball just happens to bounce your way or something like that. But all you got to do is muck up the paint when the ball goes up, and those 2 guys are like the perfect guys for it. Physical, like, they love getting bumping with everyone.
Yeah, and in this matchup, talking about the rebounding and how that could be a struggle for Canada because of the size of France. If Canada, Canada's going to stick with their normal lineup, which is going to be smaller than France, they're going to have to do kind of what the Oklahoma City Thunder did this past season, which, ironic because Shea and Lou Dort are on this team. But, they went through all last season as, one of the best teams in the NBA, best team in the Western Conference, with only really having Chet Holmgren as their center. And the question was, is the rebounding really going to hurt them? And while their numbers on the glass didn't look great, they were able to make up for it because they were able to get steals and force turnovers, which is how they ended up, equalizing their possessions out with their opponent. So they're going to have to do the same thing in this matchup, which all these guys are capable of doing. Shea, RJ, Dylan Brooks, Lou Dort, Andrew. You go across the board, there are a ton of guys that are capable of being tenacious defenders that can get steals, force turnovers, and score quickly off those turnovers. And that is what France is going to have to be careful of. The fact that they don't, like you were referencing, Nick, they've been having some troubles with their guard play. If France turns the ball over a lot, then the rebounding may not be enough to compensate for it. They're going to have to take care of the ball.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. So I'm just looking at the 3-point percentage numbers here from the 12 teams in the tournament. And Brazil is the best 3-point shooting team through the first 3 games. At 45%, they're making 11 out of 25. The U.S. is a close second, though, at 42%. France is down in the middle range. They're only at like 37%. And if they're going to want a chance against Canada, then they're going to need to shoot, I would say, probably above like 45%.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if we want to talk predictions for this game, who are you guys kind of leaning towards?
I mean, I would have to go Canada.
I would also have to go that country up north and pick Canada.
Yeah, I'd have to go Canada as well. I mean, they just have so many pieces. Wemby is going to have a crazy statistical game.
I was gonna say, I don't want to I want to keep watching this France team, but come on, Canada is actually insane.
Yeah, just with so many pieces and players on that team. So I'm sure that this is probably the outcome that we're hoping to see. I'm sure that we probably want to see a Germany-Canada game, as you were talking about, Nick. That'd be a heck of a matchup to watch out for. But I mean, France, I mean,
that's a rematch of the World Cup final last year, I think, Germany and Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yep. for a chance to lose by 40 to the Americans in the gold medal game. That's what it'll be.
So just to get dunked on by LeBron.
So I would have to predict that it will be Germany, Canada. And then, I'll pick Germany because they beat them last year. I just think that their continuity is a bit better at this stage than Canada. Canada's definitely deeper. Both of them definitely lack in size a bit. But I would give Germany the edge because they have some guys playing for them right now that weren't necessarily like expected to make a big impact, but they are. Like Dennis Schroeder and Franz are averaging like over 20 a game, which is great. They're the leading duo. But then you got like Isaac Bonga, who is having a great tournament so far, and they have a 3-point shooter named Obst, who is just like the second coming of a German Steph Curry. He's ridiculous. He's a very high impact player on both ends too. Like he can stay in front of guards. So I would pick Germany over Canada, and then on the other side it would definitely have to be U.S. and Serbia. And I'll give the edge to the Americans once again, even though it is hard to beat a team 3 times, and Serbia probably has the best chance to do it. But I would say it'll be Germany and the U.S. in the final, and then the U.S. wins.
Interesting. Well, going to the Serbia-Australia matchup a little bit, we can go into that a little bit. This is definitely a matchup that's, Nikola Jokic, Bogdan Bogdanovic versus a well-rounded Australia team that has a lot of different pieces that could go off on any given night. I mean, Australia, they've got 4 players averaging over 11 points per game, with Patty Mills, Jock Landale, Dyson Daniels, Josh Giddey, all playing very well. Dante Exum even too has been very solid, averaging over 10 points per game. Serbia, I mean, their big thing is just trying to withstand whenever Jokic is not on the floor. Jokic has been amazing. Bogdanovic has been amazing. It's finding those other players that's been kind of a struggle for them so far.
If Serbia plays Jokic the entire game with maybe a minute or 2 of rest, they can win this game. Outside of that, I low-key think Australia wins this game, like outright. I think they just have a more well-rounded team. And what we've seen with Jokic and the Nuggets is what we're seeing with Jokic and Serbia is as soon as he goes off the floor, like the point differential is completely just flipped like minus 20 the other way.
I don't know. I could see Australia winning it, but they lost to Greece. Only scored 71 points in that game. And they also blew the Canada game. They had a 4-point lead going into halftime, and then they got outscored by 16 in the second half. So didn't play a complete 4 quarters of basketball there. I don't know. They definitely have like Jock Landale, Dustin Daniels, Dante Exum, Josh Giddey. Like they have the personnel. I would still take Serbia though, honestly.
Best player on the court. I mean, that's not. I can't say you're wrong about that. I mean, the best player in the world could definitely trump anything else that Australia could put out there. Because I mean, Jokic just continues to play so incredible. No matter where, the numbers are fantastic.
Dallas got the zoomies.
Yeah, I just stopped her with the hand real quick. Oh, Chopper, no, not you two. Oh gosh!
Shout out to the doggos.
Oh, crazy as ever.
Yeah, but
do you guys want to make a prediction for who you think is going to be in the final for the gold and bronze medal
When
game?
is the final?
So the final is August 10th, this coming Saturday.
Oh, so I'll give my prediction on Thursday then.
Yeah, we'll give our prediction. I'll go in depth with that on the next episode.
Well, you got mine.
And then Brazil, USA, of course. USA is probably going to win. But
if Brazil still had Anderson Varejao, I would say they have
famous
a chance.
last words. Probably going to win. Famous last words.
Dude, if we don't medal, how bad would that be?
Dude, we
didn't last time, and we didn't medal in the FIBA.
Would be. Oh my god.
Well, the FIBA doesn't matter. We didn't have LeBron James.
No, I mean this would be
the best team.
That'd be horrible. But
we don't have a team that's better than the Dream Team right now.
Yeah, Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Jackson would have to live with that the rest of his life. He said that the team
Oh,
that didn't medal is the best team ever. But shout out to Bruno Caboclo for Brazil, who had 33 points and 17 rebounds against Japan.
Damn.
dude.
He was crazy in this game.
Knocked Japan out.
33 and 17 on a 40-minute FIBA game is very remarkable.
Very impressive. But then in the other two games combined, he had 6 points in 19 minutes in the other two games. So the inconsistencies are crazy. But if I mean
Hey,
Brazil,
shout out Bruno Caboclo for one game.
shout out Bruno Caboclo, always going to be 1 year away from being 1 year away. But let us know in the comments who you think will come out of these Olympic quarterfinals. So I guess would we? Well, Nick, what would you prefer to see? Obviously, you said Germany, Canada, but would you prefer to see Serbia play the United States or Australia? Not who you think will win the game. Who would you prefer to see play the United States?
Probably Serbia, just so they can get that third chance at them. Like, you've seen them twice. You probably know that they're the best team in the world and they have a lot of weapons. But you've had like 2 games to sort of prepare now. And I think that they would be confident heading into a third game.
You really
Anyways.
want the USA to get knocked out, don't you?
Dude, I would love to see Serbia knock them. I mean, I would love to see
yo,
I mean, that would be incredible to watch.
where's the
Just from like
country
a
pride?
basketball fan perspective.
Oh, we're
But,
Americans, though.
I think Australia would come into that game if they won like a little bit deer in the headlights and like it might get out of hand early. Whereas like Serbia would come in with a much more professional, not deer in the headlights. Like we've been here before. Just played them twice, 3 times.
That's why I want Australia to advance, because I want the USA to have an easier path.
Oh,
Because Serbia, I don't want, if they get that third chance, it's the saying, third time's a charm. They could do it.
well, I was saying from the very beginning of all this when we were previewing, a few episodes ago, that the main thing I just wanted to see was close games. That's all I want. Obviously, I would love for the United States to win. That goes without saying. But if the games are super close and we could get legendary moments, that I would love to see that happen. And I feel like we could get that with either one of these matchups because Australia, historically, they've played very well against the United States in certain type of games. Patty Mills is always. I remember the World Cup
Australia
or something
versus
in
US.
2019, and Patty Mills was playing very, very well. I don't know if it was the World Cup or some sort of international play.
Oh, he went off. I remember what you're talking about. One of the tournaments.
He went off against the United States. So, I mean, either matchup I'd love to see. I mean, Jokic versus USA for the third time. I think that would be great. I guess that's what I would be. I'll go with hoping for that to happen.
I don't know if I can
You guys
see
see-
Jokic cook Embiid for another 30 points.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the end of the Canada-Spain Group A final game?
No, I missed it.
It ended up being a 3-point game. Canada they had like a double-digit lead most of the game, and Spain just hung around, kept hitting shots, kept getting stops, and like they played tough as nails in the second half. Unfortunately, it just wasn't enough for them to overcome Canada's like shot making and their difficult level of shot making. But
Yeah.
Spain was like getting to the cup, playing really good basketball, and they were doing it as like a group of like middle. They were like all in their middle 30s. Like they were an older group. They shouldn't have been in the game probably against a group of 10 NBA players and whatever. But they played tough down the stretch. They played with a lot of heart, and they had a shot. They had a real shot to win the game and knock Canada off, and they would have really stunk up Canada's. Canada didn't really get a good draw, anyways. Maybe it would have been a little bit better if they did lose it. But Spain was playing for their life. If they would have won that game versus Canada, they would have advanced to the medal round or the quarterfinals. They didn't get it, but they were playing like they had a lot to play for.
Spain,
Sergio Yui, who we talked about before,
yeah,
Yeah.
Sergio
had a
Yui.
shot to tie the game at the buzzer, but just
Oh.
missed it.
It was like a
So-
three-quarter court shot.
Yeah, so Spain was definitely in that game for a while, but
They got a sneaky good team, always have been. There's players on this team. I told you, I think it was Rudy Fernandez, who used to play for the Blazers. He's been on the Olympic team for Spain since 2004.
he actually after the loss, he announced his retirement. So
There it
congratulations,
is.
Rudy
Congratulations to Rudy Fernandez.
Fernandez.
You are a
great.
podcast legend.
Yeah, it was cool to watch. Like him and Lule, however you say it.
Yui.
I think they're both in their late 30s, and like they've been playing together for probably 20 plus years. And there was a moment like late in the fourth quarter where it was a simple like dribble handoff sort of action, and it was just bad timing. Like Fernandez popped and Lule passed it to the spot that he had just been in, and it went out of bounds. And it was like these guys have been playing for 25 years and they're still making like simple mistakes like that, but in crucial moments down the stretch of like you're playing for your advancement, you're playing for your life. It was like, dang, that was kind of hard to see. Like these guys are probably gonna hang it up after this buzzer goes off.
Yeah, it is crazy to see those types of things. I know the Olympics in Tokyo 2021, we got to see, that was the final time we saw the Gasol brothers play. Same with Luis Scola for Argentina. I totally forgot Luis Scola like completely transformed his look after he stopped playing in the NBA.
Didn't have that flowing
He does look
hair.
good. Yeah, he looks good.
Yeah, it looks actually kind of like Nick a little bit now that I'm thinking about it.
Used to look like me and now looks like Nick.
Yeah.
That's right. But yeah, it's gonna be super fun to watch. Again, most of these games will probably be completed when you're watching this, but super excited. We will preview the bronze medal and gold medal games on the next episode. Now let's get to the real headline, our top 10 point guards list. This is gonna be fun.
Should be fun. Sorry, Mike.
First of many top 10 lists that we're going to be doing. The next 5 episodes, actually, we're going to be doing the top 10 of each position and then culminating in a top 50 list. So this is going to could be very, very controversial. Jackson is not here on this podcast, but he did send me his list beforehand. So I do have all 4 of our lists. Before we get started, how did you guys formulate your list? Is there any?
So I went to Hoops Hype Global Rating and just copied what they had. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, it was hard. I know we talked about it a little bit in the pre-pod lobby. Like, are we doing this upcoming year? Like, are these predictions or is it based on like their whole career? I think what I did was just based on last year. These are where these guys are at right now in my head, based on like total impact, not necessarily like who's the best at creating shots for other guys, who's the best scorer, like both ends of the court, your value to your team. That's how I made my list.
100% the same way. It's like obviously scoring is a huge deal. So like I compile it based kind of looking just straight at the scoring. And then I went down like, okay, how were the rebounding, assists, turnovers, steals, and also leadership, the way I look at them as a leader as well and how they did with their team. Because they're the point guards, so they're directly correlated to their team doing well.
Yeah, and that's why this list was so hard to make. Like eventually when we do the top 50 players, it's not going to be as simple as just taking the 50 players that we made on these top 10, because the probably 14th best point guard is going to be better than probably the 8th best small forward. Just hypothetically, I'm throwing out numbers, but
right.
Like there are some guys on this list who none of us know each other's lists except I know Jackson's, but like Cade Cunningham he's not on my list. He's not a top 10 point guard for me, but he's a great young talented player. He a guy like even like Darius Garland, who's far from the top 10 point guards list from this year. he's a guy who averaged 18 points, 7 assists, and he may be like what the 15th or 16th best point guard. That just shows how stacked the position is.
Jalen Brunson, another name, had a great year, but he's nowhere near my top. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Right.
I'm kidding.
No Miles. No Miles. What you're saying is definitely right. Like Garland or I forget the other name you had. They might be better than like Jalen Green or Desmond Bain, who might have to be like a top 10 shooting guard or small forward.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this should be fun. Let's get right into it. We'll start at number 10. I'll start. I'll give both Jackson and myself. I feel like there could be a lot of variability with the start of this list at number 10. Jackson had Jamal Murray at number 10.
Yikes.
And I had Damian Lillard as my number 10.
Okay.
I agree with Goglin. I also had Jamal Murray.
Ooh,
I'm not lying. I wanted to give Jackson the heart attack. That's why I said Jalen Brunson is nowhere near my top 10, and now I'm agreeing with him. I agree.
Yeah, no, there's definitely going to be some variability. I have Lillard a bit higher. Might be too high. But Jamal Murray is not on my list, and there are a couple of guys I would put above him who didn't make my list either. My number 10 is De'Aaron Fox.
Ooh, De'Aaron Fox. Or I guess that's not too low. I guess so. Before we get into Fox and even Dame, because I guess we have them higher. Joey, why do you have Jamal Murray as your 10?
Well,
yeah, make a case, brother.
Okay. Now I got to pull up the basketball reference.
Because I was
page
listening to
that
the
I
Hoop
have
Collective
up.
today, and Miles, we've been over this a couple times. I don't think he's gotten extended.
I think that it's been something that it's on the table, and that it was like something like they're expected to get it done, but it's not like official yet.
Because I don't know if Denver's going to be offering him the full max, and I don't know if Jamal's going to be accepting anything less.
We will have to find out. But
Yeah,
either
we'll
way,
have to find that out.
For Jamal Murray, all I got to say is the man averaged 21, 6.5, and 4, and shot 42.5% from 3 and 48% from the field. He's scoring, doing a lot of everything, only averaging just over 2 turnovers a game, which is very low for a point guard. So, and being paired with Jokic, who he's the playmaker. He really is. The offense runs through him.
Which is why Jamal has 2 turnovers.
And you're still putting up those kind of numbers. I don't know. Being one of the top seeds in the West and still being a top point, and with those kind of numbers, to me, that I put him there.
Yeah, I don't think it's that crazy. I mean, Jamal Murray from even like the season before when they won the title, he had a better regular season. Like, this is a guy that he's probably the best arguably the best player ever to not make an All-Star game at this current moment in time, because his numbers are just incredible. Like the last 3 seasons, he's put up, those 20 points, 4 boards, now up to 6.5 assists per game on very high efficiency. He was so efficient this year. I think that the thing that he kind of left us with a bad taste because of that Minnesota series. That's probably where Nick, I didn't have him on my list either, but he was probably 11 for me. And it was probably because of that playoffs, because besides Game 7, actually, where he had 35 points, he and Jokic were fantastic. They just couldn't get much other help. Murray, he really didn't play that well. He was so inconsistent in that series, the wins and losses. It was just so different for him. We really hadn't seen him play like that in the playoffs before, because, we've known Jamal Murray as a guy to be like, okay, pretty good regular season player, bumps it up in the playoffs. We really didn't get that this year.
Yeah. This year was almost opposite, yeah.
What I'll say about Jamal is that, like you said, Miles, a couple weeks ago, he's still one half of probably the best duo in the NBA, at least like the duo that you don't want to see in the playoffs. He's still one half of that. And if he can do 24 and 6, like every night, that's exactly what his team needs from him. So he's got the value. He's valuable to his team. And yeah, he's probably right in that like 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. He's definitely not below 15. So yeah, I don't mind him at 10. He just didn't make my list.
That's
Okay,
fair.
let's move on to number 9. Joey, who was your number 9?
My number 9 was Dame. I only had him one spot higher. Like it wasn't too much off. Like I understand Nick probably has him a little higher, he said too, but I don't know. Dame had good numbers. It's just there was a lot of injuries with that whole Bucks team this year. So like we didn't really get to see him to his full potential in the playoffs with Giannis. So I'm a little salty about that. I'm excited to see them this year, but to me, Dame, because even for Dame standards, his year was good, but even you ask him, he's like first time leaving Portland, like
Yeah,
he had a hard time adjusting. Everyone could tell you. So at least
just getting comfortable.
For me, it was even with this one. The reason I picked him at 9, and he really is like has been a top 5 talent. But the reason to he's not is the eye test for me. He just looked uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'll talk about Damon a little bit more in a bit. All right.
Okay.
This might be a surprise.
Okay.
Number 9, I have my favorite, bro, Tyrese Maxey.
Whoa.
He's too low now. I completely flipped from
that is very low.
That is so low.
Wait, how has this flipped completely?
Jackson's probably
upcoming
screaming
year,
right
he's gonna
now.
have to take a step back. He's gonna have to minimize his role scoring a bit. He's gonna be passing to PG, letting Joel do his thing.
But this was based on last year, right? We just said that.
Yeah. Based on where he's at right now. The Paul George
man was insane.
Past.
Wow.
I don't know. I got him at 9. That's who
26 and 6 with
Immaculate.
under 2 turnovers a game.
Immaculate.
Yeah, dude, you guys know I love him. I just think that there's 8 better point guards out there.
Hey, that's fair.
I
feel happy that I'm like we're carrying the load now for the Maxi love.
Oh my god, no, I'll still do that. I just
Wow,
like if I wasn't gonna put him top 5, which I wasn't ready to do that. It was kind of
no.
He could fall anywhere in this like 6, 7, 8, 9 range, and this is just where I have him because I think there's a couple guys who have done a better job.
Okay, that's definitely fair. Oh, Nick's right back with us. I don't know what happened. Jackson and I, we both had the same guy at number 9. We both had Trae Young at number 9.
Okay.
Who may be a player. I don't know. Did you guys have him on your list?
He's next for me.
I did not include him on my list.
Did not. Okay. And that I think I was expecting that. Because he was not, if we did this list last year, he was not going to be on my list. But last year for a Hawks team that did struggle, they were very, very, very disappointing. I don't give most of the blame to Trae Young. I thought that he had a very, very good season. 26 points, 11 assists. We're used to those numbers from him. I mean, he's put it up, ever since his second year, really. But I don't know what it is. This year, he was more efficient this year, especially from 3-point range. And strangely enough, most people, you probably won't think this because of the Hawks' struggles defensively and his reputation defensively. He was better defensively this year than in the past. He at least gave more effort. Obviously, he's at a disadvantage because he's just so small. There's not really a whole lot he can do on that end. But he gave more effort to that end this year. And to that, I give him credit. So that's why he made my list at number 9. And he's still one of the best, when you look at statistics, I mean, he's automatically a 25 and 10 guy nightly, and he's always going to be a threat on the offensive end.
Yeah. Trae is great. And Joe, you were talking about the eye test a little bit with Dame, how maybe he's just uncomfortable. Maybe you can tell like he's regressing a little bit. My big thing with Trae is that he's passing the eye test. Like he continues not necessarily to like improve his ability to score because he's always been able to do that. His ability to like get past guys and all that. but he's continued to improve, like from an efficiency standpoint and from like a professional basketball standpoint, where you're just you're creating what you want, you know what you want, you're getting the looks that you're looking for. And I think Trey is still increasing his value at this point. He's still climbing in his career. That's why I had him at just higher than Maxey at number 8.
That's fair. Don't get me wrong. Trey's numbers directly scream top 10. Honestly, even top 5. You could even argue top 5.
Yeah, top 3. I mean, 26 and 11. I mean, you
Yeah,
just look at the stats. You're like, yeah.
Exactly. But his team sucked.
Yeah.
They got the number 1
fair.
overall pick. I can't pick a player to be on my top 10 list, especially a point guard, where your team finished that bad, where you were that bad.
Well, I mean, in defense of the Hawks, they were in the play-in, and that was like one of the luckiest number 1 picks we've seen in the last 10 years.
That's true. Play-in. Come on. For Trae Young.
Look, I think we're all going to have
I miss the Trae Young that was taunting the New York crowd like Reggie Miller back in the day. Like the cold. Like,
he's still there, bro. I'm telling you.
I just want to see that. I want to see that. He's just not there for me. I guess I have high standards of Trae Young, but to me, top 10 him is only if he's like top 5. And that's because he's leading his team to like be a competitor in the East, because he's leading the team as the point guard, and you're putting up these insane numbers.
Can I put the brakes on us for 1 minute?
Yeah.
Because I just realized I forgot someone on my list, and I want to ask if you guys have him.
Okay.
You guys have LaMelo on?
No. I should have said that beforehand. So guys like LaMelo and Ja Morant, they were so injured this year, just not included on the list. I mean, they're with the new rules of the 65 game limit for awards and stuff like that. Obviously, it limits the amount of players that can win the awards. But for things like lists like this, like if you played 50 something games, like Trae Young played 54 games, he's on my list.
Yeah.
Like guys like Ja, who played I think like 9 games, LaMelo probably like around 20. That's just not even close to enough. Didn't even play a quarter of the games.
If you don't even play half, I'm sorry, you're not on my list.
Yeah, I agree. So Joey, who do you have at 8?
At 8, I have De'Aaron Fox.
Same as me, same as Jackson.
Let's go. Oh, I don't want to. Me and Goglin. Oh no! Don't tell him, guys. I know he doesn't watch the podcast, and when he's not on. But don't tell him I agree with him on so many things.
I know, but look, De'Aaron Fox. I mean, I like this spot for him. I think this year he really improved a lot. He's another guy that keeps on improving. My big thing for him this year, I talked about it repeatedly whenever we talked about him and the Kings, just the fact that, he increased his 3-point percentage and volume to where he's 37% on 8 attempts per game. Like, that's huge for a guy like that who thrives on attacking the basket, getting those mid-range pull-ups. And that's going to be something that is huge for the Kings going into next season. Now, of course, having DeRozan in there with Sabonis, who aren't your big 3-point shooters. You're going to need Fox to continue that volume. Now, we'll see if he can continue that 3-point accuracy, because he did a similar thing in the second year of his career. Not the volume, but he increased his percentage from like 31 to 37, and then immediately it dipped right back down to 30. So we just need to see the consistency from him.
Good on-ball defender too. Averaged
Yeah.
two steals a game this year.
Just for reference, this Hoops Hype list, they love De'Aaron Fox. They have him as the 4th best point guard right now.
Whoa,
and they hate Trae Young, Joey. They're with you. They got Trae Young like outside the top 15, below Kobe White, below D'Lo, below Fred VanVleet.
Okay, now that is insane.
Okay. Trae Young, and I think Trae Young is like the one that like barely missed my list, like at like maybe 11 or 12. I don't hate Trae Young. I just have high standards for Trae Young.
Interesting. Okay, so
De'Aaron
now
Fox
let's go
is
to number 7. We'll start with me. I have Tyrese Halliburton at number 7. Um, I this is interesting. I feel like this could be a little low for him. But I feel like,
Nick's seething.
I feel like this is a decent spot for him. He had a great first half of the season. His numbers were incredible. It dipped off a little bit in the second half of the year. And even the playoffs, they kind of went down a little bit. Um, but I mean, Tyrese Halliburton, heck of a year. I just think there's more that I want to see from him. I want to give him some room to grow with this position on the list.
What does Jackson have?
At number 7,
Yeah.
so Jackson has
This
Steph
is the one
Curry.
that you guys flipped because he probably has hot. He was comparing Halliburton to John Stockton in those podcast texts. He probably has
Yeah.
Halliburton like 2.
Probably true. Jackson had Steph Curry at number 7.
Oh my gosh, what are
Okay,
we doing?
yes.
What?
Yes, I know. I
He-
know.
You can't make that claim without being on the pod, bro. Don't read that off.
Oh
All right, let's
I
just
have
forget
it
that
here.
happened.
I-
Joey, who do you have at 7? Let's forget that happened.
no! Oh no!
Yeah,
I got it in the pod text. I was already mad enough. I don't want that man to make me mad anymore.
we'll get to Steph much later. I'm hoping.
Yeah. I have Devin Booker. I do.
Okay.
I have Devin Booker at 7. He still had a great year. It's just with that much amount of talent, numbers are and stuff chemistry wise could dip a little bit, but he still had a great year. It was more of a lot of the eye test. Them as a whole with the Suns, again, point guard, a lot of leadership, a lot of starting. They still made the playoffs, but man.
I will say though, for as much talk as there is about them not really having a true point guard, for him stepping into that role, I mean, I thought he played about as well as he could have played. I mean, Devin Booker averaging 7 assists per game while giving you the 27 per game. I think that's still very, very solid. That's why I have him a little bit higher, but I can't blame you for that because I mean Phoenix, they definitely had more expectations than to not win a single playoff game. So I could understand.
Yeah, I don't think Devin Booker was the problem in Phoenix. Like
No.
he stepped in that role and did a good job, like you said. I also have him a little bit higher, but he struggled to stay on the court last year as well. Number 7, I agree with Miles. I have Tyrese Halliburton.
Okay.
What?
That's where he's at. That's where he should be.
Oh.
I mean,
What?
he
Yeah.
he was a top 5 maybe player in the league last year. Definitely like a top 5 point guard in the beginning of the year, but like the middle of the season just was really bad, and he never really like recovered from that. Like I know they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, but it's not like he was arguably not even the best player on their team in the Eastern Conference Finals.
That was the thing to me. Like low key, the Pacers played better and they were closer in that series after he got injured, which
Yeah,
was kind of
TJ
strange to
McConnell
think about.
should be number
TJ
6.
McConnell, legend.
Yeah, TJ McConnell was spectacular. Like to your point, I mean, I'm looking at Halliburton's split for the season after it from January on to the rest of the season. Halliburton 16 points, 9 assists, just 32% from 3 on 7 attempts.
Yeah,
which is just that's not really it for the second half of the season. Now you look at the first half, like Nick mentioned, and like I said, incredible. I'm looking at his numbers.
Dude was
25
an
and
MVP
13.
Dude was like an
25
MVP candidate for the
dude, I would
first
have been the
2 months of
smartest
the year.
fantasy GM if I could have made the right timed trade for Tyrese Halliburton. Got him off my dang team around like January, December.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because Halliburton, first half 25 and 13 on 50, 41, 86 shooting splits. Incredible stuff. But the second half of the year, teams were able to figure it out a bit. And then the playoffs,
hurt.
there were even some games where, the big thing was that they needed him to be a little bit more aggressive. And, I think that's something that he'll get better at next year.
I'll make my case for him a little bit later because I do
Okay.
have him a little higher. But
All right,
yeah.
my number 6, I finally got Lillard in there. This is where I got Dame at number 6. I still think he's an incredible like point guard, and that he's going to have a much better year in Milwaukee this season. I think back to Portland Dame, and I think that he, although maybe is regressing a little bit, lost a bit of his quickness, isn't as fast off the first step with his dribble. He can still like put up 25 a night in the playoffs. I have no worries about him going cold. Like, he's a true pro, and he's a great teammate. And I guess the defense is probably a big aspect that he's going to have to improve upon this year if they're going to want to win some basketball games there in Milwaukee. So we'll see what happens with that. But I still think he's a very high-level point guard, a top 6 point guard.
He was great in the playoffs. Great in the playoffs. I mean, the Bucks, they had injury problems. He was also involved in that. And he also, I mean, he played through injuries in Game 3. Was a good decoy. Still played well. Even came back later in the series and gave all he had. I mean, this guy. I mean, when the lights are on, I mean, he still shows up when it matters, and he really was incredible. I mean, this season was one of his worst ones in a long time. But I mean, again, it is his first year in Milwaukee. I think he's definitely going to get better, like you said, Nick. His second year there. I think it's tough for players. I mean, it's his first time at, what was that? 11 years in, gets traded, first time going to a new team, new situation,
new coach halfway through the year.
Yeah, it was just a weird situation there in Milwaukee. I give a lot of their guys kind of the benefit of the doubt that they will be able to be a little bit better next year. Like we'll talk about the Bucks when we get to our team previews. My big worry for them is just the fact that they're old as dirt. But
I was gonna say, even a bad year. I was gonna say this was a really bad year for Dame, a really bad year for Dame is still 24 and a half and 7 assists. Yeah. Like, I'm not complaining. Like, he still is a top 10 talent, no doubt.
Yeah, incredible stuff there. So number 6. Jackson, that's where he had Tyrese Halliburton. So not incredibly high. I guess that just means that John Stockton is number 8 or something.
Yeah, literally.
Number 6 is where I personally had Tyrese Maxey.
Agreed. That's why I put Tyrese.
You have Tyrese Maxey too?
I have Tyrese at 6 as well.
So you guys had Dame at 9. Did we just flop Dame and Tyrese?
Yeah.
Yeah, for you, and I had Dame at 10. He didn't even make Jackson's list.
You're kidding.
Curry's 7.
If Curry's 7, Dame's off the list. Maybe LaMelo is number 3.
Yeah, maybe LaMelo's still coming.
LaMelo in the one game. Maybe Fred VanVleet is on. He literally told me, this will be the last thing. Dude, when he gave me his list, he forgot to write down his number 10. And he was like, "Oh man, I forgot my number 10. Just put Fred or someone." I was like, "No, dude,
pick somebody."
He was like, "Dude, some borderline guys were Trey, Dame, and Jamal." And he was like, "Oh, okay, I'll put Trey and Jamal." Didn't he just
Drew Holiday was in there too? I didn't have him on the list. I don't think he's going to be on anyone's, but he was my next guy.
He was my 11 actually.
He was good. Off. Yep, me too. Definitely could have made it, but Tyrese Maxey at number 6. Jackson has Maxey at number 5. So I mean. Tyrese Maxey, I mean, he was just so impressive this year. Having to take on that load of, having to be, their main ball handler now after James Harden gets traded. The stretch where Joel Embiid missed all those games. I mean, he was the guy. He was the number 1 guy on everyone's, opposing scouting report, and he delivered. And my big thing for having him this high was his playoffs because, man, his playoffs, especially on the road. I mean, he saved their season in Game 5. Now, it was only for 1 extra game, but in the 3 road games in New York, Maxey averaged 38, 5 boards, 8 assists, shot 58% from 3.
I forgot he did that.
Dang.
It was incredible. That elevated him over Halliburton to me. Halliburton was going to be over him until that playoffs. I mean, in a series where, Joel Embiid really struggled, they couldn't really get much help. Tyrese Maxey, he really carried them through. And he was so efficient with that as well. That's why I have him up there. I do think his numbers may decrease, like you said, because of, all the new additions. But I think he deserves the 6th spot on this list.
I have Tyrese at 5. Halliburton.
Halliburton at 5. Okay.
Yeah, so we're not all too far off from each other.
No,
I
Yeah,
was gonna
7.
say, and we've talked a lot about Halliburton. So the only case I said I was gonna make is, man was All NBA third team. There's only 6 guard spots, right?
Well, I mean, positions don't really matter anymore for.
But if there's only 6 spots for guards, that means point guards and shooting guards, and you got one of them. To me, that means you're at least top 5 of a point guard. That means the one shooting guard would be Ant Edwards.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean that's
the only other guard.
I see what you're saying. I think the better way to think about it is like Tyrese he was a top 15 player based on his third All-NBA selection last year.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that also has
That
to do with, I mean,
qualifies
some
to
of the
make-
guys we have on this list didn't meet the 65 game mark.
Mhm.
So that kind of also has a thing to do with it. But no, it's definitely fair. I mean, when you look at, let's see how they would have voted for point guards on All NBA, he would have been the 6th best point guard, actually. So he kind of fits in right around where we have him. Nick, who do you have at your number 5?
I got Booker at 5. I think he's a top 5 point guard, and I'm happy with him at 5.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, I mean, very, very
You
solid.
had Halliburton at 7, Nick?
Halliburton, and then Dame, and then Booker. Yeah.
And I had Booker at 7 and Halliburton at 5. We just flip-flopped again.
Yeah.
Yep. Same as Nick. And then Jackson had Booker at 4. Now, this is where it gets very, very interesting. I was having some tough debates with myself about who I wanted at 3 and who I wanted at 4 between these two players. I thought that 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 were in their own different tiers.
They are.
Okay.
Besides
in my
Godwin.
personal opinion.
Besides Godwin.
Besides Godwin.
I think we all have the same 4 guys left.
Yes, we definitely should at this point. So, okay, my number 4 is Steph Curry. We all have Steph
all in agreement.
Yeah.
Hey!
I was gonna get, trashed on for having him at 4, but
no, Steph Curry is an incredible player. Still is an incredible player, but your team made a play-in. I can't put you top 3 if you made a play-in and you're the leader. Your team stunk around you, and Clay was a shell of his former self, and you didn't really have that dynamic duo, but I'm sorry. I have to, if I held the standards for other people, who I said for Trae Young, you made a play-in and you weren't having a great year. It's the same, almost the same thing, but obviously Steph is a whole nother level outside of Trae.
yeah, look, honestly, even if Steph's, team, was better and he put up this exact same stat line, I still think he would be number 4 with the 3 guys ahead of him. I think that the 3 guys ahead of him were just that great. Steph, I mean, this season his numbers did decline a little bit. Still 26, 4, and 5 was still incredible. Was the clutch player of the year. I mean, the Warriors, they played in so many tight games, and he hit so many big shots for them. I mean, he probably has a whole, 10-minute highlight reel of clutch shots from this season alone. He had a tremendous year. So Steph at 4. It's weird to have him this low, but
yeah,
I think
it doesn't feel good. I was to say, it doesn't feel good, but it's the right spot because these other 3 guys are insane.
So I'm gonna assume that all of us have Jalen Brunson at 3.
Yep.
Okay, we all have Jalen Brunson at number 3, and man, just shout out to Jalen Brunson. I mean, who would have thought when he signed that deal with New York that 2 seasons later he'd be the 3rd best point guard in basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to going to the playoff series that the Cavs had the first year as Dallas sees a squirrel or another dog outside.
Hey, shout out to Jalen Brunson's former team, Dallas.
like when the Cavs played the Knicks the first time and they lost 4-1.
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson was like overshadowed a little bit. Like he wasn't like it was still Julius Randle's team at that point. I mean, it was kind of like a changing of the guard a little bit during that playoff series. Like Jalen Brunson,
Randle was all NBA. That I could agree with that.
but like it happened very fast where Brunson just like totally skyrocketed, and to have him now above 4-time NBA champion, MVP of the league, greatest shooter of all time, like it just goes it really speaks about what he did last year and what he's been cooking up in New York. Like, yeah, and that we're all in agreement obviously speaks volumes about it too.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson. There's not much else you can say. Man had a fantastic year. If it wasn't for these two other guys that are just actual MVP candidates, like Jalen Brunson's right outside the top 3 for MVPs, and the other two guys were in the top 3.
Yeah,
that's literally all it comes down to.
Yeah.
Brunson is just he's one of my favorite players to watch in the league because he just has that old schoolness type game about him. Like for someone who's 6'2", he loves to go bang down low in the post, shoot his fadeaway, and you can't stop it. It is unstoppable. He's so good at those contested shots. I mean, these two guys ahead of him are pretty good at that too. But the way he's just elevated his game, like even in the the 2022 playoffs, his final year with the Mavericks, where he showed flashes. Like I still at that point, I don't think that any of us could have foreseen this type of production coming from a guy like Jalen Brunson. So all the credit in the world to him and for the Knicks for making that decision to bring him in, because I remember at the time that was like it was coming off of another disappointing Knicks season. Everyone was like, it's just the Knicks doing it again. They're overpaying this guy who's never been a full-time starter. Like, what are you guys doing? And it's worked out perfectly. And now he's taking full pay cuts, to make their team better. And, he's been everything that they could have asked for and more.
I low-key want to put him 1 because of him doing the Tim Duncan thing and taking the pay cut.
Oh, pay cut.
Like, it's so classy. It's so old school. I love it. But, again, MVP candidates are a different breed.
Yeah, so let's go to those two guys. I want to go last.
All right, my number 2 was SGA. My number 1 was Luka.
I'm in agreement there. I am Luka 1, SGA 2.
Okay, I do not agree.
Oh no.
I have swapped them.
So you clearly don't value winning.
I do value winning.
The number 1 seed. What are you talking about?
I have
Shea. The 1 seed. Sorry, not the team that actually made it to the finals. My bad.
No. No. So I've got Luka at 2, Shea at 1, same as Jackson. I'm actually in agreement with him. But I think that this is fair for Luka because although his numbers in the regular season are just ridiculous, in the playoffs, he left a whole lot to be desired. I mean, we talked about it a ton about how, even though the numbers were still incredible, he definitely, could have been better in the playoffs, especially in the finals. Defensively, I wanted to see a lot more out of him. He just disappointed for me in the playoffs.
That's fair.
And Shea is a guy that even though, his team did lose in the second round, they were the number 1 seed in the West. His numbers were incredible as well. 30 points, 5 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals, and a block as a guard.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Incredible on both ends. And, this just came down to it for me. When it mattered the most, Shea did not disappoint over Luka. Like even in that series when the Thunder played the Mavericks, Shea was better. His numbers were better. The Mavericks role players just played better. So Luka, obviously he's capable of being number 1. I just want to see him prove that he is definitely number 1. I don't want there to be any debate that he is the best point guard in the game. Right now, I think there is.
That's fair. Either way, these two guys are the two guys. They're interchangeable. It really depends on feeling because I know I was joking about winning, but like to me, I value winning a whole lot. However, either way you look at it, over a long-term season, Shea was literally on the best team in the Western Conference, number 1 seed. So they're winners. Then you got Doncic, who literally went to the finals, winning. Either way, you got 2 MVP candidates, winners. My preference is just Luka Doncic.
Yeah, I mean, they are definitely. It could go either way for both of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Luka though, he was hurt in the finals last year. Like, he was banged up.
Throughout the
Not
whole
making
playoffs.
Excuses for his defensive capabilities. You guys know that I ranked him 19th last year in the first couple weeks of the season.
The switch up from Maxey and Luka Doncic to now is crazy.
Well, I stand by it. But yeah, the defensive impact that SGA has is definitely levels above Luka's defensive impact. That definitely has a big impact on these rankings. But I think that they're interchangeable. I don't know who would I'd rather start like a franchise with.
Yeah, that's what's tough for me, because Shea has kind of rocketed into this spot, over the last season with the success that they had. Luka is just like, when you think about who do you want to build a franchise around at the guard position, he's just the first you think of because he's been the number 1 guy for the last, 3 to 4 seasons. But I mean, this season we saw how his defensive woes can just completely cost his team. And I
100%.
I like my two-way players. I like my
That's
two-way
fair.
players. I think, like I said, I just think that Luka, he has more room to grow, and I'm giving him his chance to do that with number 2. I want to see him jump up to number 1 at this time next season.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think one thing you said, Miles, is I want to see him like put some distance in between himself and like shut the door and leave any questions unanswered, whatever. As long as SGA is there, I don't think that's going to happen.
That's true.
This is going to be the dominant point guard battle out west that we're going to see for the next decade.
Hopefully.
No, you're definitely right. That is true. I just think, Luka, I just wish that he just didn't disappoint in the playoffs. And I know he was injured, but I just and I know they made the finals. I know that's the argument that people will make. I feel like that's the only argument that people can make that Luka is over Shea, though, even though that he wasn't even better than him in the playoffs.
It really is the only argument.
I'll give you another argument. I mean, he averages a triple-double. Like,
Shea's not far off.
Yeah, I mean, these two guys' numbers were just incredible. That's something. Let us know in the comments, Shea or Luka, heading into next season, because I think that it is super close. We even saw it in the MVP voting this year. Shea was just barely over Luka in MVP voting, so it is definitely very, very close. This list was a lot of fun. Very some controversial things, including Steph Curry at number 7.
I don't want to talk about that anymore. I thought it was bad.
I forgot that happened.
I threw it out of my brain. I started feeling weird in my stomach when I was just saying him at 4. I didn't like that. Him at 7?
Him at 7. Oh. Unbelievable stuff. Well, you guys have anything else before we get out of here?
Make sure you watch those Olympic Games.
Let's go. Let's go, Chelsea.
Oh, that's right. Yes, we'll be back on Friday to go over those games. And then for our top 10 shooting guards list, won't be, the players, they aren't as, loaded at the top as, the point guards, but there are definitely still some all-star, superstar caliber players at the top of that list. So it's still going to be a ton of fun to do. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe for more NBA content. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.